If you didn't hear, Ben Shapiro was at Capitol Hill today talking to them about censorship for conservatives and conservative media, and a Democrat from California decided to debate him on some random topics. As you can imagine, the Democrat got absolutely wrecked on gay marriage and immigration. Take a look.
Scale of 0 to 100%, how much do you support Project 2025?
I think, like President Trump, I haven't looked all that deeply at Project 2025, but it seems that Democrats on this committee, sort of like Peter Pan and Tinkerbell, if they say Project 2025 enough, their presidential candidate becomes alive again.
And so, well, let's just talk about pieces of it, and I guess you can tell me if you support it. You probably want less bureaucracy, right?
I do.
I want less bureaucracy. You want more efficiency?
I do.
I want more efficiency. You want taxpayer money spent wisely?
I do. Congrats on becoming a Republican.
Yeah. Yeah. My parents would be proud. Mass deportations, it calls for that. Do you support that part?
I support the deportation of any illegal immigrant who is in the United States who is not of benefit to the generalized American public.
So if they're picking agriculture that puts food on the tables of everyday Americans, they've never committed a crime inside the United States, they didn't come across with documents, should they be deported?
If they have not paid taxes and if their draw on the taxpayer benefits are larger than the contribution they are making to the economy, or if they're involved in criminal activity, they should be deported.
How do we measure that?
The same way that the IRS measures my income every year. It seems like if the IRS can track down every aspect of every receipt that I've ever submitted, and
so
they can do so for hundreds of millions of other Americans, they can do that for illegal immigrants as well, except for the fact that no one knows how many are in the country thanks to this administration.
So you would be cool with creating a system where they could pay those taxes if they wanted to and then stay and work and put food on our table?
It depends on how long it would take for them to pay the taxes, and they would also have to go presumably to the back of the line, although I'm not sure why I'm testifying about immigration policy at this point.
How about banning the abortion pill? That's part of Project 2025. Do you support that part?
I think that that's a state-by-state issue on a personal level.
I'm just asking you.
Sure, I'm a fully pro-life person, which means that I'm not in favor of the distribution of the abortion pill.
Banning same-sex marriage, what about that part?
I am in favor of traditional marriage between a man and a woman, and I'm perfectly fine with anyone having any sort of voluntary sexual arrangement they seek. That's a different thing from whether the government should attach benefits to that personal relationship.
But you think it's a sin to have same-sex marriage?
I mean, I'm confused. Are you asking me as a religious Jew what I think about biblically?
I'm just asking, is it a sin to be gay?
Is it a sin to be gay? I mean, how long do we have here? 2 minutes? I mean, if the basic idea is that sexual orientation is up for government regulation, I'm not in favor of the government regulating the private consenting sexual activity of adults. That is a different thing, once again, from whether the government ought to engage in actual benefits for particular sexual arrangements that adults make.
But again, just you to me, is it a sin or not?
From a religious Jewish perspective, orientation is not a sin, but activity is. That's also the same perspective of most major religions, so far as I'm aware.
Okay.
My favorite part of this clip is when Swallwell makes that Freudian slip towards the beginning, and he says that he wants to make things less efficient, because that's actually true. Everything he says where he's like, I agree with that, and Ben Shapiro says, congrats, you're a Republican, he says that because that is so clearly not what the Democrats want. Like, they do not want there to be less bureaucracy. That's one of the big reasons why they actually hate Project 2025, by the way, because it talks about gutting the bureaucracy, and they're terrified of that. The best thing that Ben does, though, in the exchange is that he turns the table on Swalwell in a really, really good way, because basically he's showing that what Swalwell's goal, essentially, is that he wants Ben Shapiro to look like the radical. And what Ben Shapiro does is he turns the tables on him, and he's basically showing them that gay marriage is the weird thing. Traditional marriage is not the weird thing. And when I say weird thing, I mean the thing that's like existed for 6,000 years, or if you're like me, I literally believe that it is eternal. So this idea that it's the weird thing that, traditional marriage would be accepted and would be lawful, and actually, that there would be benefits towards traditional couples because they rear children and actually create the next generation, that's somehow the weird thing, is absolutely ludicrous. And Ben does a really good job of just shoving that back at him and being like, no, you're kind of the radical one, since you're supporting something that no one believed in until 2000. And I think Ben articulates that really well. Also, if you have to remember that this hearing is about censorship, which this question has nothing to do with. These questions have nothing to do with them. So again, you have to ask yourself, why is Swalwell doing this? Why is he asking Ben Shapiro, who owns a conservative media company, about gay marriage. And the reason why is because his whole goal is that he's trying to show people that Ben Shapiro is super radical. And his whole goal, again, he says at the beginning, I think I cut this part out, but he says, I'm not going to censor you. But the only reason why he would grill Ben Shapiro like this is his goal is for people to believe that Ben is the radical one and that he should be censored, which is the huge irony of all of this. That's the only logical reason why he would have Ben Shapiro answer these questions. He's trying to show people that Ben should be censored. This is what Democrats believe. They believe that all conservatives are huge radicals and that they deserve to be censored. It is certainly what Swalwell believes, there's no question. Because Ben and Jeremy Boring, by the way, the people who own the Daily Wire, they are largely the faces of conservative media. And so if he can prove that Ben Shapiro is somehow the radical, then he may also be able to prove that it should be censored. It shouldn't, of course. I don't believe liberal media should be censored either, especially like crazy progressive media. I think it should be out there because I think the more people see it, the more people see how loony it is. But Ben just shows Swalwell instead that he is the radical instead of being Ben. So it's really fantastic. Also, Ben's opinion on immigration, so reasonable and palatable. This is something that Democrats cannot understand, and it's why when you look at the polling that people trust Republicans on immigration so much more than Democrats. The Republican base, what they believe about deportation and immigration, incredibly palatable. This idea that people who come here illegally should not be able to skip the line, that there are other immigrants that we actually want here, and that they can't come. It's actually more pro-immigrant to not allow illegal immigrants because you are allowing people who are actually going through the process to still become immigrants, which, by the way, we bring in more than 1 million legal immigrants into the United States every year. That's something Democrats will never talk about. If they wanted to increase that number by 100,000, 200,000, I don't even think Republicans would deny that. But they don't talk about that because they don't want legal immigrants. They want illegal immigrants so they can vote in their elections and do other things. But he's literally saying that he wants people deported if they're not, if they're criminals or if they're just not really providing a good service, a good, productivity and the good of America. It's an incredibly non-radical position to take. Swalwell realizes that. You can see his kind of gears turning. He's realizing this isn't going his way during the debate. So not only did Swalwell look stupid, but he actually looked incredibly radical, which Democrats are in this election. I've said this time and time again, but if you look at Trump's policies, you look at the things he's talked about, he is the moderate one. He is far closer to Bill Clinton in the 90s in terms of policy than Joe Biden is, by far. It's not even close. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Please go down below, comment, like, and subscribe, and watch another video.